The desert sun was brutal that morning, scorching the barren landscape of the distant planet Kalara. Captain Alex Carter adjusted the brim of his wide-brimmed hat and squinted at the horizon. He had been sent here with a small team of humans to explore this sector of the galaxy, to gather resources and learn about the planets untouched by the larger interstellar civilizations. Kalara was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the occasional wind howling across the dunes. Alex had been walking along the edge of the research base when he first saw her. A small figure stumbled across the sand, bare feet kicking up tiny clouds of dust with every step. At first, he thought she was some local scavenger, one of the nomads the human scouts had occasionally spotted on this planet. But there was something different about her. She moved with a kind of delicate urgency, her movements hesitant but determined. He noticed that her feet were raw and blistered. The soles were red and cracked from the burning sand, and she limped with every step. Alex's heart tightened. He had seen humans suffer on harsh planets before, but it was rare to see someone endure pain so quietly without complaint. And somehow, despite her struggle, she seemed almost graceful, like she belonged to the desert. "Hey," he called softly, careful not to scare her. She froze and turned her head slightly, revealing large dark eyes that reflected the sun in a way that made them look almost golden. Alex had never seen eyes like that. They were intelligent, alert, and fearless even though her small body trembled from exhaustion. She didn't respond. She just stared, and Alex realized she might not understand him. That didn't matter. He slowly removed his boots and sat down on the sand, patting the ground beside him. "Here," he said, holding them out. "Take them." The girl hesitated, her eyes narrowing in confusion. She looked at her bare feet, then at the shoes, then back at him. In her culture, Alex would later learn, giving something personal to someone was more than generosity. It was a sign of trust and respect, an act that carried deep meaning, but she didn't know that yet. She only knew that these shoes could save her feet from burning and pain. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she stepped forward and took them. Her hands were small, delicate, and covered in fine sand. She held the shoes for a moment as if weighing the decision, then slipped her feet inside. A small sigh escaped her lips. Relief, Alex realized, and perhaps something else. Gratitude. Alex smiled. "There you go, better?" he asked. She nodded slightly. She didn't speak, but her eyes seemed to say more than words could. Alex didn't need her to talk. Something told him this small moment was important. The humans at the base were watching from a distance. Some whispered among themselves, clearly confused. "Why is he giving her his shoes?" one of the engineers muttered. "She's not even human." Alex didn't care. He only knew that he couldn't leave her suffering. Sometimes the simplest act of kindness could mean more than 100 speeches or displays of technology. As the sun rose higher, Alex learned a little more about her. She didn't speak their language, but she followed him back toward the base. Each step was careful but steadier than before. Alex noticed the way she looked at everything. The equipment, the buildings, even the humans. She had a curious, sharp intelligence. She was no ordinary child. There was something regal about her, something commanding even in her silence. That evening, after the long day of scanning and recording, Alex went out to check on her. The girl, whom he had started calling Kayla because he liked the sound of it, was sitting quietly near the base watching the horizon. She had taken off the shoes for the night and her feet were still red and sore, but the slight smile on her lips told Alex that she felt safer now. "You did well today," he said softly. "We'll get you something stronger tomorrow, okay?" Kayla tilted her head. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. There was kindness there and maybe something else, protection. She stayed near him as he walked back to the base, keeping a careful distance but never leaving. Night fell, and the desert grew colder. The winds howled louder, rattling the thin walls of the research tents. Alex lay awake thinking about Kayla. He didn't know why, but he felt a sense of responsibility for her. He had helped her with something as simple as shoes, and yet it felt like he had done something far greater, though he didn't yet know why. Meanwhile, Kayla returned to the dunes, slipping silently through the shadows. She moved carefully, almost like a ghost. Her species, Alex would later learn, were known as the Veyari, warriors, strategists, and rulers of entire star systems. Kayla, young though she was, carried the weight of her people in her heart. And the shoes, the gift Alex had given, were more than protection. They were a symbol of trust, something the Vayari valued above power, above wealth, even above life itself. By dawn, she had returned to the research base. Alex was the first to see her, standing in the faint morning light. She didn't say anything. Instead, she simply walked up to him, eyes steady, as if acknowledging something he hadn't yet understood. He noticed movement in the distance, first tiny dots, then shapes, ships, hundreds of them. He froze. Alex had studied Vayari technology and human databases before coming here, but nothing prepared him for this. The massive fleet of the Vayari Armada had arrived, and they weren't here for a friendly greeting. Kayla stepped forward, placing herself between Alex and the fleet. The ships hovered silently, their weapons trained on the base, engines humming like 1,000 heartbeats. The humans panicked. Soldiers ran to defensive positions. Technicians scrambled to secure equipment, but Kayla remained calm, her eyes on Alex. Alex didn't understand at first, but then he saw it. The Vayari weren't angry. They were bowing. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon platform lowered slightly in the traditional gesture of respect. Alex's breath caught in his throat. It was unimaginable. A human, a single human, had earned the respect of one of the most feared civilizations in the galaxy with a single act of kindness. Kayla raised her hand, signaling the fleet to halt entirely. Then slowly she walked toward Alex. The humans watched, dumbfounded, as the tiny figure of the alien girl commanded the might of an entire armada. Alex swallowed hard. He wanted to speak, to say something clever or brave, but no words came. Kayla stopped a few feet away from him, and for a moment time seemed to freeze. Then she looked at him, eyes bright, and nodded. Not as a child to an adult, not as a subject to a king, but as a leader to someone who had earned her trust. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. Something neither Alex nor his team could have predicted. A bond, forged not in battle or negotiation, but in empathy, in understanding, and in the simplest gesture of giving his shoes to someone in need. By mid-morning, communication lines were established. Alex learned that Kayla was the heir to the Vayari Armada, a princess trained to lead from the day she was born. His act of kindness had been interpreted as a sacred pledge of trust. She explained through a translator device that humans were rare in her region of space, and very few had ever shown such humility and understanding. The Vayari were willing to listen, to cooperate, even to form an alliance. The humans couldn't believe it. All their advanced technology, their weapons, their strategic plans. It was Alex's simple empathy that had earned them the respect of one of the galaxy's most formidable powers. By nightfall, the Armada had retreated to a nearby orbit, still respectful but ready to follow Kayla's orders. Alex sat with her once more, this time more relaxed. The young girl looked at him, a hint of a smile on her lips. She didn't speak the words humans used, but her presence conveyed a clear message. Trust had been earned, and an alliance had begun. Alex realized that heroism didn't always mean winning battles or conquering worlds. Sometimes it meant noticing someone's pain and doing something about it, even if it seemed small. The galaxy was full of power, full of war, full of pride, but sometimes a pair of shoes, given freely and without expectation, could change everything. And for Alex Carter, that small, quiet act was the beginning of a journey that would take him further than he had ever imagined. The sun set over Kaylara, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. Alex and Kayla watched together, two unlikely allies bound by trust, empathy, and the silent promise that humanity had just found its first true friend among the stars. The morning sun rose slowly over Kaylara, painting the desert with streaks of gold and crimson. Captain Alex Carter stood at the edge of the base, barefoot now, the same way Kayla had been when he first met her. The memory of giving her his shoes lingered in his mind, and he couldn't believe how one simple act had led to the arrival of the Vayari Armada the night before. The vast fleet still hovered silently above the horizon, their massive ships glinting in the sunlight like stars frozen in motion. Kayla appeared at his side, calm and composed. Her dark eyes, the color of burnished bronze, scanned the fleet. To anyone else, she looked like a child, but Alex had already learned that she carried the weight of her people in her every gesture. She didn't speak, yet Alex could sense the authority she radiated. Even the ship seemed to respond to her presence. Alex's team gathered behind him, whispering in disbelief. No one had ever seen anything like this. "Captain, what's happening?" one of the engineers asked nervously. Are they bowing? Alex shook his head, still in awe. I don't know exactly, but it's respect. They're showing respect to Kayla, and through her, to us. The Veyari Armada began a slow, deliberate maneuver. One by one, the enormous vessels tilted forward in the ceremonial gesture their species used to honor those who had earned trust or loyalty. It was both humbling and terrifying. Alex realized that the humans' lives here depended on the way he had acted yesterday, and somehow, he had already altered the balance of power on this desert planet. Kayla took a step forward, her bare feet leaving faint prints on the sand. She raised her hand and the ships immediately halted their movement, hovering in perfect alignment above the base. Alex could hear the faint hum of their engines, a sound that resonated like the heartbeat of a living being. It was mesmerizing. A translator device activated beside him, buzzing with alien speech. Alex's jaw dropped as he heard a clear, commanding voice in his own language. Captain Alex Carter, your actions have proven your heart is honorable. The Veyari recognize your courage and humility. Your species shall not be treated as strangers, but as allies. Alex swallowed hard. He had trained for diplomacy and strategy, but no lesson had prepared him for this. A single human, him, had earned the allegiance of an alien princess, and through her, the obedience of an entire armada. It was beyond anything he could have imagined. Kayla approached him, her small hand extended not in a request for friendship, but as a declaration of trust. Alex took it, feeling the coolness of her skin and the firmness of her grip. At that moment, the humans behind him realized that they were witnessing history. The gesture was simple, yet it carried immense meaning. In the Veyari culture, a pledge of trust made in this way was binding. Humans and Veyari would now have to honor it. Alex stepped forward, trying to speak, but words failed him. Instead, he gestured toward the fleet, acknowledging the massive display of respect. Kayla nodded slightly, her expression calm yet proud. She led him toward the command ship, hovering just above the desert sands. Alex's team followed cautiously, unsure if they were about to witness a ceremony, a briefing, or something entirely new. Inside the command ship, Alex could finally see the full scale of the Veyari Armada's power. Hundreds of ships filled the vast hangar, each one massive, sleek, and armed to perfection. Soldiers in their shining armor moved with precise efficiency, bowing their heads slightly as Alex passed. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. These were the galaxy's most feared warriors, yet here they were, acknowledging a human as their equal. Kayla guided Alex to a central platform. She raised her hand again, and the ships outside shifted into formation, creating a perfect grid across the desert sky. It was a display of both beauty and power, a silent testament to the strength of her people. Alex realized that the Veyari weren't just fighters. They were artists, strategists, and leaders on a scale he had never seen. The translator buzzed again. Captain Alex Carter, your actions yesterday have reminded us that strength is not only measured in weapons or numbers. Compassion, humility, and understanding are true signs of leadership. Your people have the qualities we admire, and we offer our alliance freely. Alex exhaled, finally finding his voice. I didn't do anything heroic. Kayla interrupted with a small shake of her head. Her eyes were serious. Captain Carter, you gave what was yours freely. That is heroic. That is honor. That is respect. And respect is worth more than all the weapons in the galaxy. Alex's team exchanged looks of disbelief. This was more than an alliance, it was a lesson. One human's kindness had shifted the attitudes of an entire civilization. A civilization known for its strict codes of honor and military discipline. The galaxy could have faced hostility, but instead, Alex had earned friendship with a simple act of empathy. Hours passed as Kayla introduced Alex to her council. They discussed trade, mutual protection, and technology exchange. Every suggestion Alex made was met with serious consideration, not dismissal. The Veyari were intelligent, thoughtful, and surprisingly curious about human culture. And all of this had started because he had noticed a barefoot girl struggling in the sand. Outside, the desert shimmered in the afternoon heat. The Veyari Armada flew in tight formations above the planet, a breathtaking sight that reminded Alex how small humans were in the grand scheme of the galaxy. Yet despite their size and technology, one human had made an impact that even centuries of diplomacy could not have achieved. As the sun began to set, Kayla took Alex to a higher platform overlooking the desert. The sky was painted in shades of red, orange, and purple, and the fleet above reflected the colors like a second sunset. She stood beside him silently, letting him absorb the scene. "I never imagined something so simple could mean so much," Alex said softly. Kayla's eyes met his. She didn't speak the words humans used, but her gaze conveyed understanding, respect, and trust. She had seen his heart, and in her culture that was more important than any weapon, strategy, or victory. Night fell, and the desert grew quiet once more. The Veyari ships remained in orbit, hovering like guardians. Alex returned to his tent, reflecting on the day's events. Humanity had gained allies, yes, but more importantly, he had learned that courage wasn't only about facing enemies. Sometimes courage was about noticing someone suffering and doing the right thing, even when it seemed insignificant. Days passed, and the humans and Veyari began working together. Kayla showed Alex secret training techniques of her people, demonstrating strategies, ship maneuvers, and defense protocols. In return, Alex shared human technology, teaching Kayla and her soldiers how to improve communication systems and energy management. The alliance grew stronger each day, founded on trust and mutual respect. One evening, Alex walked alone across the desert, reflecting on how one act of kindness had changed everything. He saw Kayla in the distance, silhouetted against the fading light, watching him with quiet pride. He smiled and waved. She waved back, her small hand strong and steady. In that moment, Alex realized that heroes could come in many forms, and the smallest gestures often had the largest consequences. The Veyari Armada had proven their strength and loyalty, but Alex knew that the bond they shared with humans was something that no force in the galaxy could break. He had shown that humanity, with all its flaws and simplicity, could inspire greatness and respect in even the most powerful beings. As he returned to the base, he noticed a faint glow on the horizon. The Veyari ships were activating their lights in a silent salute, a display of honor that left Alex humbled. He stopped for a moment, barefoot on the cool desert sand, and watched as the massive armada formed intricate patterns in the sky. The sight was breathtaking, a reminder that respect, courage, and kindness could echo across stars and planets alike. Kayla approached him quietly, standing at his side. She didn't need words. Together they watched the Veyari Armada move with perfect precision, a living symbol of the trust and alliance that had been forged. Alex felt a deep sense of pride, not in himself, but in humanity's capacity to do good, to reach across boundaries, and to touch hearts, even alien ones. The night deepened, and the desert wind carried whispers of distant stars. Alex knew that the journey ahead would be long and challenging, but with allies like Kayla and the Veyari, humanity had a chance to thrive in ways no one had imagined. And it all began with a pair of shoes given freely, a small gesture that grew into something far greater than he could have ever dreamed. In the quiet of the night, standing shoulder to shoulder with Kayla, Alex felt the weight of the galaxy and the light of hope at the same time. The humans had found friends, the Veyari had found trust, and a barefoot alien girl had shown that even the smallest act of kindness could change the fate of worlds. The stars above Kaylara shimmered like 1,000 eyes, watching silently as a new alliance was born. And at the center of it all, two unlikely friends, a human and an alien princess, stood together, barefoot, united by respect, courage, and the simple power of compassion.